Okay, now let's build on what we've learned so far and try some layering. And we're going to do that with trying some underpainting. We're going to do a warm underpainting, which can be any of these colors on this side of the color wheel, or cool, which is all the colors on this side of the color wheel. We're going to build on what we learned about how paint layers, or watercolor especially, like in these examples where with each layer it gets darker, or how the different colors interact with each other. So we're going to start with a cool wash. I'm using blue. A wash is just like a flat color on your paper. Glazing is when it goes on top of other colors. You can use a wash that kind of has like different variations. So here I pulled off some of the paint to make it look kind of like cloudy, and I'm going to play with that later. Next, I'm going to try a warm wash, and for this one, I'm going to use yellow, and I'm just trying to like kind of wet down my paper and just get a very light color. Remember, watercolor is transparent, so it's always best to work in very light layers. And it's tempting to try to lay it all down at once, but that isn't going to be your best or most advanced method here. Okay, now for this one, on the left side, I'm going to try just drawing it out first. On the right side, I'm not, but remember, if you cover pencil, you can't erase it because the paint has covered it. But if you want to draw on top of this wash, you can erase on top of the wash as long as it's really dry. So I've just kind of drawn in some basic ideas. I'm going to do kind of a loose style tulip here, and I erased all the kind of sketchy lines I made and just kind of left the ones that just give me the basic information I need. All right, now I'm just going to go for it. On top of that warm underpainting, I'm just kind of using the guide I just made with pencil to paint my flower. I'm going to do a little bit of loose style here. I'm going to add some yellow, kind of a charging technique. And then I'm actually going to use some plastic wrap just to put on top to kind of play with the texture. I do have plastic wrap in the studio. For the other side, I'm going to add some mountains. I'm going to turn this into a landscape, and I'm using yellow because I know I'm going to want to add some purple on top in order to kind of make that neutralized sort of mountainy color that I'm going to want as I move forward. All right, now I'm using those kind of blob shapes I made with my towel before when I did that first wash in the underpainting to kind of make the shape of clouds. And I'm trying to keep it loose. I don't want just like a perfect solid blue, so I'm adding some little drop-ins of blue. I'm gonna let it dry a little bit while I kind of check over here. You can do this too, just kind of bounce back and forth as you're working. It was a little too spotty, so I added some water to kind of even it out, but I like how the texture is going. Now I'm going to try some scumbling here. This is that technique where you just are almost like scribbling. I'm trying some salt. In the end, the salt doesn't really show up, so think of that when you're doing the salt. Again, we're just figuring it out. I'm doing some dragging on the flower there, and now I'm just kind of filling in the background. I'm adding some leaves, I'm adding the stems, I'm thinking about light and shadows by putting blue on the shadow side and yellow on the highlight side because green is made from blue and yellow. In the water, I'm adding some layers with some lines. Water always lays flat, so I'm adding some nice horizontal lines, and as things go back in the distance, remember they're going to get smaller as they get further away. So as I work, I'm going to want to really pay attention to that. Now I'm thinking more about my clouds. I added some waters because I really want to preserve the lightness of the clouds, but I added some purples and some more blues to kind of add some variation on the clouds because I want them to look really natural and puffy. I've also added purple to the mountains here because I want like a neutral shadow. And so even though purple is a lot darker than yellow and I still see the purple, it's a little more neutral than if it was just purple. Some texture, some yellows to the greens. I'm just playing with layers. Remember, what we're doing right now is just learning. Do something. There's no wrong. There's only progress and learning. So do something. You might love it. You might hate it. Either way, make a mental note and either use it next time or use the experience to know what you don't like. In either case, it's fine. The purpose of this is to play. I'm adding another layer there on the left just because I thought it was kind of boring with that flat yellow, and I'm letting some of the parts kind of shine through. I'm trying with some purples here on the water. I'm really building up the layers now. That yellow had kind of a hard edge, so I've gone back with some water before it's dried to kind of smooth out that hard edge. I've decided to add some green. I've decided to add some purple. I wanted some darker shadows. I sort of made a mistake, so I added some purple to the top there, and I'm just kind of faking it a little bit. And then I'm just seeing what comes next, trying more lines. Now, again, I might add more lines than I ever should have, and that's fine. All I'm doing is looking. I'm using a fan brush to go back and forth. I'm using different amounts of water, different amount of paints, different colors. And then in the end, I can peel off my paint and label everything. Now, I want you to practice annotating what you learn. So this is where you're going to write yourself some notes. So for example, I want you to label underpainting which one you started with. And by the way, even though the left side is more warm and the cool side is more cool, you can also have a warm underpainting and a more cool artwork. It will just be pretty neutral. I'm just making some notes to myself. I'm saying, oh, I adjusted this. That's why it looks like this. This is my loose style. Oh, I can't see the salt. Too bad. Something to pay attention to next time. And enjoy.